This is the 5-minute guide to the Fuso class battleships of the Imperial Japanese Navy. By the time the Kawaichi class had been completed, the major navies of the time had moved on to the so-called super-dreadnoughts with 13.5 and 14-inch guns, and designs were being ordered with 15-inch guns. So the Japanese Navy was faced with a choice. They could not build another class with 12-inch guns, because it would be much weaker than contemporary ships. They had just ordered the 4 cargo class battle cruisers, and at the last minute, had changed the armament to Vickers 14-inch guns from the original 12-inch designs. So to save time and costs, they decided to use the same guns and the same twin turrets, although they had been offered options for a ship with 4 triple turrets instead. This was because it was thought that more twin turrets were better for offensive action, as you could engage more targets at the same time. It also meant that there was a lot of common parts and skills shared between the cargo and Fuso class, which was useful as they were supposed to operate together. Contemporary British and German designs also used a similar principle, with 8 guns in 4 turrets for the battle cruisers and 10 guns in 5 turrets on the battleships. Because 15-inch gunships were on the way, the Japanese took this principle, but extended it to 12 guns and 6 turrets, the greater number of shells in theory future-proofing the ships against fighting enemies with fewer but larger weapons. The ships were capable of 23 knots, which was faster than the average 4 battleships of the time. This came at something of a cost. In exchange for the numerous guns and higher than average speed, the ship's armor belt was not capable of resisting its own guns at battle ranges, which was the general rule of thumb for most battleship designs. These turrets were arranged with a pair forward, a pair aft, and a pair in the center either side of the funnel. A heavy secondary battery of 6-inch guns, some AA guns and 6 torpedo tubes completed the weapons loadout. The class consisted of a pair of ships, Fuso and Yamashiro, and was complete by 1915. Unlike the ships of other navies, the Fuso class did not do much in World War I other than patrol the local seas. After the war, the Yamashiro became the first Japanese battleship to successfully launch aircraft, and a year later in 1923 both ships and other parts of the Imperial Japanese Navy assisted with relief efforts in the aftermath of the Great Kanto earthquake, which among other things badly damaged the hulls of a number of warships under construction. During the 1930s, along with most of the Japanese battleships, they were extensively rebuilt with numerous changes and new machinery, the most distinctive being the so-called pagoda-style mast structures, which were needed to support a number of new fire control technologies as well as light anti-aircraft weapons. Despite this, they were the oldest battleships in the Japanese Navy by the time of World War II, and did not see much active operation, although the engines had been upgraded from 23 knots to being able to do just under 25 knots. They were still not quite fast enough to keep up with the main fleet, which was tied to the fast carrier force. There was a brief flurry of excitement when the ships were sent on an unsuccessful mission to hunt down the USS Hornet after the Doolittle raid, and then a supporting role in the attack on the Aleutian Islands. After this, both ships became training vessels and supply ships, despite a number of plans to use them in various one-off operations that never quite came to pass, including one plan to send the Yamashiro with a full load of troops to Saipan, run it aground and use it as a fixed artillery emplacement in a similar manner to the planned final mission of the Yamato later in the war. However, as losses increased and American forces got closer and closer to Japan, they began to be brought back into active service, first trying to intercept landing forces, and then finally as part of a multi-front offensive to destroy the major American landings in the Leyte Gulf area. As part of the Southern Force, the Fuso and Yamashiro sailed with the heavy cruiser Mogami for the Surigao Strait. Along the way, Yamashiro was damaged by air attack and American torpedo boats approached, but were driven off by the ship's secondary batteries. Later that night, the destroyer USS Melvin attacked with torpedoes, scoring 1 or 2 torpedo hits on the starboard side. Depending on whose accounts you believe, the ship either capsized and sank in 40 minutes, or listed to starboard, broke into and caught fire, burning heavily for over an hour. In either case, between the sinking and the huge oil fire, only 10 survivors reached the nearby shore. This left the Yamashiro to proceed as the sole surviving battleship of the Southern Force, and was hit by the fire of 8 light and heavy cruisers and the 14 and 16-inch guns of 6 battleships, plus various destroyers and other light forces. It was a battle that even both ships would have lost decisively, but the Yamashiro did not go down quietly, engaging its attackers with whichever main battery guns it could bring to bear, and trying to protect its escorts with its secondary battery firing in all directions. However, despite this valiant charge, the ship was doomed. It was hit repeatedly by 6, 8, 14, and 16-inch shells plus at least 4 torpedoes. As the American ships ceased fire after one of their own destroyers was hit by other American ships, in the confusion the Yamashiro rapidly capsized and sank as the last 2 torpedoes hit home. Again, there were only 10 survivors. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. If you have a comment or a favorite ship, let us know in the comments below, and we will try to cover it soon.